I'm pregnant by a priest, and now I need to know what I'm going to do? This is a true story, and I'm going to tell you all the details about how it happened. Don't leave before the end, because this story will leave you speechless. But before we start, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now let's get started. I was born in a very small town with only 9,000 inhabitants. I lived there until I was 17 years old, but since there were no job opportunities in that small place, I decided to move in with one of my mother's aunts who lived in a big city. It was a difficult decision, leaving everything I knew behind, but I needed to build a future for myself. As soon as I arrived in the big city, I was fortunate enough to find work relatively quickly. Life was starting to look up for me. After about a year of living with my aunt, I felt ready to become more independent, so I moved out and rented a shared apartment with some roommates. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine, and that feeling of independence was incredible. Time passed, and eventually I met someone special. We fell in love, and after dating for a while, we decided to get married. I thought I had found my happily ever after. We were married for 5 long years, and during that entire time, we tried desperately to have children. Month after month, we hoped and prayed that I would get pregnant, but it never happened. We went to doctors, tried different treatments, but nothing worked. It was heartbreaking, and it put a tremendous strain on our marriage. The failure to conceive wasn't the only problem in our relationship. There were many other issues that built up over time, and eventually, we realized that our marriage wasn't working. After 5 years together, we made the difficult decision to separate. It was devastating. I felt like I had lost everything I had worked for and dreamed of, as if the divorce wasn't enough. Just a few months after my separation, I received even more terrible news. I was fired from my job. I couldn't believe it. Everything in my life seemed to be falling apart at once. I was emotionally and financially devastated. I felt completely lost and didn't know what to do next. In my desperation, I decided I needed to get away from everything. I needed time to think and heal. So I made the decision to go back to my hometown to stay with my mother for a while. I thought that going back to my roots, to the place where I grew up, might help me find some peace and figure out what to do with my life. When I arrived back in my small hometown, I tried to settle into a routine. My mother was happy to have me back, even under such difficult circumstances. She was very religious and went to church regularly, so naturally, she wanted me to accompany her to Mass. I agreed, thinking it might do me some good. The first Sunday I went to church with my mother, something completely unexpected happened. When I saw the priest walking to the altar, I was absolutely stunned. I had never seen such a handsome man in my life. He was tall, with kind eyes and a warm smile that seemed to light up the entire church. I felt my heart skip a beat, and I had to catch myself before I literally fell backward in shock. Of course, out of respect and propriety, I didn't say anything to anyone about my reaction. I kept my feelings to myself, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. Every Sunday, I would go to Mass with my mother, and every Sunday, I would find myself captivated by this priest's presence. During my stay in town, I often visited various people I knew from my childhood. One day, I went to visit an old acquaintance who lived practically next door to the church and very close to the priest's house. When I arrived at her house, she wasn't home, so I decided to leave and head back to my mother's house. As I was walking away from my friend's house, something incredible happened. The priest pulled up next to me in his car and rolled down his window. He greeted me warmly and welcomed me back to town. He said he had noticed me at church and that I was very welcome to attend services anytime. We had a brief but pleasant conversation, and then he drove away. After that encounter, something strange started happening. Whether it was coincidence or something else, everywhere I went in that small town, I seemed to run into this priest. At the grocery store, at the town square, walking down the street, he was always there. We would exchange pleasant greetings and sometimes have brief conversations. Our town had a very tall hill with a beautiful statue of a saint at the top. From up there, you could see the entire town spread out below. It was a peaceful, contemplative place that many people visited for prayer or just to enjoy the view. One afternoon, I decided to go up there to take some photos and maybe find some peace in my troubled thoughts. I had been up there for about 10 minutes, taking pictures and enjoying the solitude, when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around, and there he was, The priest had climbed up the hill and was approaching me with a gentle smile. We stood there together, looking out over the town, and began talking. The conversation started innocently enough, about the beauty of the view, about life in the town, about general things, but then, something completely unexpected happened. He suddenly became very serious and began telling me things I never thought I would hear from a priest. He said he had been feeling something different for me, something he knew was wrong but couldn't control. He confessed that every time he saw me, his heart raced, and he couldn't stop thinking about me. I was completely shocked. I didn't know what to say or how to react. Before I could process what was happening, he leaned in and kissed me. For a moment, I was so surprised that I responded to the kiss, but then reality hit me. I quickly pulled away and reminded him that we were in a very public place where anyone could see us. But instead of being deterred, he looked at me intensely and asked if I would come to his house that evening. I should have said no. I should have walked away right then and there, but I was lonely, I was vulnerable, and I was attracted to him. Against my better judgment, I said yes. That night, I went to his house, and we spent the evening together. It was intimate, passionate, and completely forbidden. I knew it was wrong, but in that moment, it felt like exactly what I needed. The loneliness and pain I had been carrying seemed to disappear in his arms. What happened that night wasn't just a one-time occurrence. Over the following weeks, we continued to meet secretly. He would find ways to see me, and I would go to his house under the cover of darkness. We were both fully aware of how dangerous and inappropriate our relationship was, but neither of us seemed able to stop. Our secret meetings continued for several weeks without incident. I was always very careful to leave his house in the early hours of the morning when no one would be on the streets of our small town. The town was so small and quiet that the streets were always completely empty at that hour. But one morning, our luck ran out. As I was leaving his house in the early morning hours, just as I had done so many times before, a motorcycle passed by. The woman riding the motorcycle saw me coming out of the priest's house, and in a small town like ours, news travels faster than wildfire. Within hours, rumors were spreading throughout the entire town. People were whispering about the young woman who was having an affair with the priest. The gossip spread like wildfire, and soon everyone in town was talking about it. It was a scandal of epic proportions in such a small religious community. It didn't take long for the rumors to reach my mother's ears. When she confronted me about what she had heard, I could see the shock, disappointment, and anger in her eyes. She was absolutely furious. She told me in no uncertain terms that I would not be allowed to go anywhere in town alone anymore. Knowing my mother as I did, I knew she was completely serious about this restriction. I immediately went to find the priest and told him what had happened. I explained that we couldn't continue seeing each other because my mother was now watching my every move. He looked genuinely sad and disappointed, but he understood the gravity of the situation. The scandal had an unexpected effect on me. Instead of making me want to leave town immediately, it actually made me lose the desire to go anywhere. I felt trapped and ashamed, so I decided to stay longer with my mother, even though I had originally planned to return to the big city much sooner. About 2.5 months after I had arrived in town, I started feeling unwell. I was experiencing nausea, fatigue, and other symptoms that I couldn't explain. Since our small town didn't have a hospital, I had to travel to a neighboring town to see a doctor. When I explained my symptoms to the doctor, he immediately suggested that I take a pregnancy test. The moment he said those words, I felt my entire world stop. The possibility of being pregnant had never even crossed my mind. After all, I had been married for 5 years and had tried desperately to conceive without success. The idea that I could be pregnant now, under these circumstances, seemed impossible. But when the test results came back, they were positive. I was pregnant. I couldn't believe it. After years of trying unsuccessfully to have a baby with my husband, I had gotten pregnant from my affair with the priest. The irony was overwhelming, and I broke down crying right there in the doctor's office. I drove back home in a complete daze, crying the entire way. When I walked into my mother's house, she took one look at my face and immediately knew what was wrong. She looked at me and said, "You're pregnant, aren't you?" Through my tears, I nodded and confirmed her suspicion. My mother didn't waste any time. She immediately left the house and went straight to the priest's house to tell him the news. When she confronted him with the information, he was as shocked as I had been. The reality of the situation hit him like a ton of bricks. The next day, the priest took action. He reported everything that had happened to his superiors in the church hierarchy. He confessed to the affair and informed them about my pregnancy. The church officials were, understandably, scandalized by the news. The consequences were swift and severe. The church demanded that he officially register as the father of the child, taking legal responsibility for his actions. Shortly after, he was removed from his position and suspended from his duties as a priest. Now, I am 7 months pregnant, and instead of returning to the big city as I had originally planned, I ended up staying in my hometown with my mother. However, I still plan to go back to the big city after the baby is born. I need to find work and build a life where I can support my child properly. The priest has been coming to visit me regularly throughout my pregnancy. He has been supportive and caring, and recently, he even proposed marriage to me. He wants us to be a real family and raise our child together. But I'm honestly not sure if marriage is what I want. I had been married for 5 years previously, and while it was a good marriage in many ways, it ultimately didn't work out. What happened between the priest and me was exciting and passionate, but I don't think I truly love him in the way that you should love someone you're going to marry. I'm afraid that if I marry him now, I would just be trying to fix one mistake by making another mistake. I think marriage is too serious a commitment to enter into just because of the circumstances. Right now, we're talking and trying to figure out what's best for everyone involved, especially for our unborn child. My mother, of course, thinks I should have married him yesterday. She believes that marriage is the only proper solution to this situation, and she doesn't understand my hesitation. But this is my life and my decision, and I need to make sure I'm doing what's right for me and for my baby, not just what society expects me to do. This whole experience has taught me that life can change in the most unexpected ways. One moment you think you know where your life is heading, and the next moment everything is completely different. I never imagined I would find myself pregnant by a priest, but here I am, preparing to become a mother under the most unusual circumstances imaginable. This was the real story of one of our followers on the other network, a complex situation that shows how life can take completely unexpected turns. We thank you for sharing this very personal and delicate experience with us. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and share this video. Your interactions help us to continue bringing more real stories like this one. And in the comments, tell us what you would do if you were in her situation. Would you accept the marriage proposal or choose to raise the child alone? Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.